We're back in 3ds Max with Video Post opened. If you don't have it open, navigate to the Chapter 12 subdirectory within our Scenes directory and open the file Chapter 12 Video Post 01.max. Open Video Post by clicking on the Rendering menu, then the Video Post option from the drop-down. In Video Post, we've created a Video Post queue and an output event in order to save the animation to a file. Before we go too much further, let's save the current Video Post queue sequence. Click on the Save button from the Video Post toolbar. This will automatically put us in the default Video Post directory of our project. If it does not, navigate to the Understanding 3D Project folder on your hard drive and navigate to the Video Post directory or vPost directory. In the file name, let's name it Cut Sequence and press Save. That saves our Video Post queue down to the hard drive so we can recall it at any time in the future. One important thing to remember about working with Video Post is that each image input event references the files from their current location. This means that if you move the files after you set up your Video Post queue, the link to those files will have to be reestablished. Now we want to create a transition between Facade and Interior 1. We want to use a transition that is a crossfade transition. The facade animation ends with the door opening to the interior of our building. The Interior 1 is the interior of our building. We are going to use this transition to indicate that we have moved through the door and are now located inside the building. The way we add a transition is we highlight the facade entry and the Interior 1 entry. Go ahead and hold the Control key down, click on the facade entry, then click on the Interior 1 entry. Now we have both of those selected. The next step is to go to the Video Post toolbar and click on the Image Layer Event button. In the dialog, we have several types of image layer events that we can choose from. The event that we want is the Crossfade Transition event. In the drop-down list, select the Crossfade Transition option. Now let's go ahead and name it Fade 1, then click OK. And you see now that the two events in the queue are indented and are now a child of the Crossfade Transition event. And here, the Fade 1 indicates how long the crossfade is going to take. Let's go and drag the left end of the Crossfade Transition to about over here. We can read down in the fields at the bottom of the Video Post dialog. If we look at the S value, we can see the frame number of the starting frame for our fade transition. Now click on the right-hand side of the Fade 1 slider bar and drag that over to the left so it's lined up with the end of the facade image sequence. Now if we look at the S and the E values in the lower part of the dialog, we can see that we have our starting frame and our ending frame for the transition. And we have the total number of frames the transition will take up. We're going to create a short crossfade, maybe something around 15 frames. In this case, it starts at frame 144 and ends at frame 159. The reason we need to set this up this way is because we need to overlap the facade sequence and the Interior 1 sequence to give enough frames to perform the crossfade. In this case, we need to have 15 frames of the facade event and 15 frames of the Interior 1 event overlapping each other in the timeline. Next, click on the Interior 1 time slider and click and drag the middle of the range bar to the left until you see the start frame at frame 144. You'll see in the bottom of the Video Post dialog that the start frame indicator will change to 144. This now gives us a 15 frame overlap and will render a proper crossfade between the two sequences. Then we need to slide the beaker animation range bar to the left until the first frame matches up with the last frame of the Interior 1 range bar. The last thing we need to do is look at the last frame of the beaker animation event. In this case, the last frame is indicated as frame 263. Now double-click on the Master Sequence event and set the VP End Time option to 263. Then click OK. This will shorten the overall animation. This is a very important concept to understand. If we had originally anticipated that we were going to put a 15-frame transition between the facade image sequence and the interior 1 image sequence, we would need to add extra frames to each sequence in order to maintain the original 277-frame animation. Go ahead and save the video post queue file. Click on the Save button in the Video Post dialog. Name the file Fade Sequence and press Save. This saves this version of the video post queue so that if we want to adjust it at a later time, we can. In order to render the video post queue out to our master sequence, we need to render the video post queue. In the Video Post toolbar, click the Execute Sequence button. By default, the range will be set to the master sequence output range. If for some reason it's not, set the range to go from frame 0 to frame 263. From the output size dropdown, choose the HDTV video format, then click on the 640 by 360 preset option. This will set the image size of the video post rendering to the same image size that we rendered these files out of 3ds Max at. Click the Render button to render the sequence and save it as our master PNG sequence.